On today's show, we know the Capitals didn't get the results that they were looking for, but according to one NHL insider, don't expect any big moves from the Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals and how they got eliminated in 4 games. And I think it's the belief of a lot of Capitals fans that Brian Maclellan is going to go out there and make some big moves. But according to one NHL insider, don't expect it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about Nic Dowd and his many contributions for this team and what he will mean for the team going forward. And then in the closing segment, we will talk about the next round of the NHL playoffs. But just to get it going here, talking about what can we expect from the Capitals this summer and how much different will this team be before next fall? Is there the possibility that Brian Maclellan does, in fact, go out there and get that top 6 forward? Maybe. Is there the chance that he goes out there and totally changes this lineup before the fall? Highly unlikely. And, oftentimes I hear about the promises that were made to Alex Ovechkin. If it's not from Tarek El-Bashir, it's from this guy, it's from that guy, that there were promises made to Alex Ovechkin that he wouldn't face a complete teardown rebuild while he's still on the team. And that appears to be the case as more and more I'm hearing those stories. And in this segment, we'll talk about Frank Saravalli and what he said in the Daily Faceoff and what to expect from the Capitals. We do know that the Capitals secured a spot in the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs with 91 points, but faced a swift exit after being swept by the Rangers in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. Despite a slow start, Alex Ovechkin's 31 goals played a pivotal role in the team's return to the postseason, although he did not register a point against the Rangers. And it's one of the things, and it's a bit frustrating, I guess I'm going to say, as a Capitals fan, is this promise that was made to Alex Ovechkin that he must play on this quote-unquote competitive team, whatever that means. Would you call what you saw on the ice last season from the Capitals competitive? Or should that all be rephrased in that Alex Ovechkin wants to play with familiar faces? He was really upset, of course, when Nick Backstrom stepped away. He was upset when Kuzi got dealt. He's upset about the possibility of Oshie. Listen, Alex Ovechkin is going to have to come to terms with the fact that this team needs to make big changes. And those promises that were made, I guess Brian Maclellan has to honor them, but was that the right thing to make that promise to Alex Ovechkin, that he must stay on whatever this quote-unquote competitive team is? With a roster featuring a few remnants from the 2018 Stanley Cup winning team and a new wave of emerging talent, such as Ryan Leonard, Hendrix Lapierre, Connor McMichael, the Capitals appear to be on the cusp of a significant transformation, at least a youth infusion. However, the team's strategic direction may not fully embrace the future until Ovechkin retires. That's a bit difficult. That's a tough pill to swallow. That expect this, what we saw this last season from the Capitals until Alex Ovechkin hangs up the skates. As Capitals fans, how do you feel about that? How do you feel positive about those remarks? Do you feel positive that this team is going to be playing some lackluster, mediocre hockey until Alex Ovechkin hangs up the skates just because those promises were made to him? For me, I'm going to go ahead and say that makes me pretty frustrated as I want to see competitive hockey back in DC. During a recent discussion on Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli and Tyler deliberated on the upcoming challenges and plans for the evolving Capitals. Tyler said this offseason presents an intriguing scenario for the team, given the limited number of key free agents and the aging core players. Despite securing a playoff spot, the roster's depth and cap constraints pose significant challenges. What are the team's priorities for the upcoming summer? And they talked about Connor McMichael being an RFA coming up here, and that there's not a lot of flexibility. Max Pacioretty probably played his last game of hockey with the Capitals, but nothing too earth-shattering. It's not like this player's going to move and that player's going to come in. It just kind of seems like it is going to be business as usual. So Frank Saravalli, the NHL insider from the Daily Faceoff, said, the focus remains on maintaining competitiveness while adopting a sustainable approach. The intention is to avoid sacrificing young talent for short-term gains. Mac emphasized a forward-looking strategy at the trade deadline, acknowledging the team's commitment to transitioning towards the future. Remarkably, the late-season push to secure a playoff berth, despite initial doubts, reflects the team's resilience and determination in Spencer Carberry's inaugural season as the head coach. The resurgence also underscores the ongoing significance of Alex Ovechkin, whose pursuit of the goal-scoring record remains a compelling storyline. The question now revolves around the duration of this pursuit. That is the thing that has been said, and I've gone over that again and again, is this, that Alex Ovechkin doesn't want to face a rebuild. And I guess that's kind of open to interpretation. We talk about that the good job that Spencer Carberry did and that these young players did better than many people had thought. But is what we saw on the ice in the fall going to be good enough to get a different result next season? So in the interim, the team aims to remain competitive and honor its commitment to Ovechkin's legacy. However, there is a pressing need to revamp the defensive lineup. Although John Carlson's return significantly bolstered the team's performance, additionally, depth in players that align with strategic age profiles such as Rasmus Sandin are essential to fortify the roster and sustain long-term competitiveness. So it does sound like there will be moves, hopefully similar to the Rasmus Sandin thing. We do know that the Capitals do have draft capital that they could use to acquire different players, similar to how the Capitals got Rasmus Sandin. Can they go out and use some of that draft capital to get that top six forward that's been kind of hung in front of us like bait in front of a bear for years, that yes, it's going to happen, just do this and do that, potentially. But seeing is believing for me. And until I see that top six forward color me skeptical. And ultimately, let's take a look at it. The Capitals are more than one top six forward away from being competitive. I would say that if the Capitals got, a really upper echelon center to work with Alex Ovechkin, that could be a game changer. Alex Ovechkin did speak to the fact that he lacked chemistry with the constantly changing lines, whether it was Kuznetsov or Backstrom or Strome or McMichael or Dowd or Lapierre, that he had a hard time gaining a rapport and a chemistry with a center that he had for years with Nick Backstrom and at points Evgeny Kuznetsov. So I think that ultimately that would be something that could help, change things for the Capitals. The team's scoring struggles notwithstanding, the primary focus should revolve around fortifying the defensive core. That is the assessment of the Daily Faceoff. Again, we cannot have John Carlson playing 30 minutes a night. It's just not sustainable. Can he do it in a pinch? Sure. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. And we saw how the Capitals struggled when John Carlson got injured versus the Winnipeg Jets when he got hit in the head and missed a substantial amount of time. That the blue line does need to be something that needs to be looked at. But I don't even think that's the primary focus right now. I think the Capitals blue line, all things considered, is not too bad. Not too bad is the operative words there. It could be better, but I think the scoring is more of a cause of concern for me. What can we expect from Alex Ovechkin? We know he got off to a very slow start, turned it on. What will he do next year? Lord only knows. We know that we are minus Anthony Mantha, a guy that, despite his bumpy ride with the Capitals over the duration, was a key contributor last season. Surprising as that is to say, where are the Capitals going to be minus all his goals that he scored? And what player is going to pick up and score the goals that Anthony Mantha scored? Kuznetsov was clutch at times. It is going to be difficult, and not to mention, the other players that might move out, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, Max Pacioretty, those players that are going to be money. So there is a lot of questions, but if I'm going to prioritize, if I was the GM right now, I would prioritize goal scorers over the blue line. Again, to reiterate, I think the blue line is pretty good. It could, stand to be improved. I think that goal scoring is something that Brian Maclellan needs to put on the front burner, as it has been something that has been spoke about for quite some time. Hopefully it's something that happens during free agency, July 1st, or if not, then before the start of the season in the fall. Because if we think that the Capitals are going to be any better next season than they were this last season, that is the definition of insanity. So let's hope that Brian Maclellan can pull a rabbit out of his hat and the Capitals can pick up those big key players so we can have competitive hockey back in the district again. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about Nic Dowd's many contributions to this team, most notably playing on the fourth line, and has been key in many different regards. Let's discuss what he means to this team straight ahead. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, and not just NBA tickets, MLB tickets as well. So say, you wanted to buy Nationals tickets and say you got busy at work and you didn't have time, fear not, as the tickets actually get cheaper closer to first pitch or tip-off if you are going to be watching an NBA game. Most likely it's going to be a Nationals game. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Nic Dowd is an important piece of the Capitals. I think that is a safe thing to say. And if you really want to know the value in a player, just sprinkle their name out there as a potential target to be traded. And then all of a sudden, and you see the feeding frenzy, you understand how important a player is to a team. Listen, I know that Nic Dowd is huge for the Capitals. It's been a couple seasons that his name has been circulated about being on the move, and it really did seem very apparent that that was going to be the case during free agency or the trade deadline, but it didn't happen. And this has been something that's been talked about the premier insiders. I'm talking Elliot Friedman and Frank Saravalli, these kind of guys that a lot of teams would like to obtain the services of Nic Dowd just for what he means to this team. And it's good that he is getting that acknowledgement in a lot of different ways, but ultimately did not win the award that he probably should have won, the Selke Award. If you're not familiar, the Selke trophy is presented annually to the forward who demonstrates the greatest proficiency in defensive play. Barkov ended up getting it, has achieved this honor for the second time in his NHL career, making him a finalist for the award 3 times. In the last 4 seasons, he boasted an impressive 57.3 faceoff win rate out of 1,100 attempts during the regular season and secured a plus 33 rating, placing him 5th among NHL forwards. So additionally, Barkov recorded 104 hits and 50 block shots through 2023-24 regular season. So let's talk about the defensive impact of Nic Dowd and take a closer look at what he means, as he was a Selke finalist. So Cap center Nic Dowd received a 4th place vote for the Selke Award, putting him in a tie for 30th place. The award is given annually to the forward who excels the most in defensive aspects of the game, as selected by the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Dowd's impressive performance includes 12 goals and 10 assists in 64 games, a 48.1 faceoff percentage, 72 blocks, and 118 hits earned him the recognition. And a tip of the hat to a guy that he is the guy that wins more defensive defensive zone faceoffs than anyone else. So that is why he is huge for the Capitals, and they need someone to do that. And the interesting thing about Nic Dowd is he is a guy that's getting it done on the 4th line. Oftentimes you think of a 4th liner that are revered as this, AHL call-up or a guy that's not good enough. You don't generally think about a guy on the 4th line as a guy with a really great skill set, but quite to the contrary, it's not just Nic Dowd, it's the entire 4th line of the Capitals, but it's good to see Nic Dowd get that recognition. Dowd led all Washington centers in defensive zone starts and defensive zone faceoffs at 5-on-5, showcasing his defensive capabilities. Additionally, he played a crucial role in shutting down the opposing top lines while contributing to one of the NHL's strongest 4th lines with Beck Mallenstein and Nicolas Aube-Kubel primarily. We have seen players plugged and played throughout on the 4th line, but that was primarily who was on the 4th line and just played a huge role for the Capitals. Also in that mix is Mallenstein was huge, and Nicolas Aube-Kubel, all key to the Capitals' 4th line success. And that is ultimately what we're hoping for next season. And what is the long-term plans for Nic Dowd on this team? I guess we don't know. Something could happen this summer. I know what he means to this team. That is important. But I'm all about improving this team. I don't want to kick him out the door. I would like to know what the return is, but I would be open to all things. But as far as Nic Dowd, and I would love the perfect scenario for him to stay with this team just based on who he is. And if you take a look at him beyond statistics, it's Dowd's reliability, his hockey IQ, and his consistency. Those are the big things, making him a strong defensive forward. His teammates, his coaches, everyone loves him and sings his praises, his strong work ethic, Dowd's impact and leadership on and off the ice. That is something that we hear more and more often. It's not just how you carry yourself on the ice with your hockey stick, with your skates on. It's how you carry yourself off the ice. And he's been acknowledged for that as well. Washington retained him due to invaluable contributions. Let's be clear here. Many people, myself included, thought it was a fairly likely scenario that he would be on the move during the trade deadline. As it turns out, it didn't happen. And it's interesting that at the time, do you think that Brian Maclellan thought there was a chance? You're telling me there's a chance. Do you think there was a chance that Brian Maclellan saw this team going to the playoffs? Is that why he held on to Nic Dowd and didn't trade him. There had to be a lot of suitors out there, as we heard all the premier insiders talking about it. Why did he hold on to Dowd if there's so many people on paper that were looking for a guy just like him? It's very interesting. Dowd's focus on maintaining consistency and improving his performance signifies his dedication to the game as he looks forward to his final year in DC. And that's an interesting thing. And I think ultimately why it was kicked around about moving him is that you could get a return. We don't want to see a situation where his time in Washington is up and he walks and the Capitals get nothing. It's always the difficult move to make, to trade someone. But if the thought process is that you're not going to extend them to a new deal, then why not do the right thing and, move them on so they can get on with their NHL career and the Capitals can get a good piece to help bolster their team. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about the NHL playoffs. I know a lot of people probably don't want to talk about it because the Capitals are not in it, but it has been some intriguing, exciting, fun hockey. The ratings for the playoffs have been through the roof on the television, on the podcast, all of those things. Let's talk about who will be playing in the next round straight ahead. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that is the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for the candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to US Indeed data. So it is quite compelling. So if you are someone that is involved in HR, like the hiring and firing, make your job that much easier. Starting now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/locked on. One more time, Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals did the unthinkable thing, and they made it to the playoffs, and they got eliminated in 4 games. The agony of defeat. I think of the guy falling down the ski lift on ABC's Wide World of Sports. If you're old enough to remember that, that is what the Capitals were. Eliminated in 4 games, and it has been a sore subject for a lot of Capitals fans. But if you can find a way to bring yourself and dig yourself out of the pit, of despair that you've been wallowing in, there has been some really great playoff hockey by some really great NHL teams. And who is going to be playing in the next round? The Stanley Cup playoffs are heating up with 4 teams just 4 wins away from reaching the final. The New York Rangers are focusing on their special teams and the quick striking opportunities, while the Florida Panthers are banking on their pending unrestricted free agents and creating high-danger scoring chances. The Dallas Stars are concerned about the return of Rope Hintz and the performance of Thomas Harley. And the Edmonton Oilers are relying on their top-heavy forward group and the performance of Connor McDavid. So we are getting to some of the best of the best. And if you are a fan of this and you're watching this, let me know your thoughts. Hit me up on Twitter at DanCaps218, at LockedOnCaps, or on YouTube, and let me hear your thoughts. Who is your favorite to win it all? It seems like the New York Rangers have what it takes. With that said, it also seems like the Stars are really good. It seems like the Oilers are really good. Again, if you're playing at this point, you are really good. But just kind of my hunch, my knee-jerk reaction is that it is going to be the Rangers winning it all. Necessarily not in love with the idea of that, but that is just kind of the direction that it's going. So let's talk about the Rangers and some specifics about the Blue Shirts. Last championship winners in 1994 and finalists in 2014. There's concerns over proficiency on special teams. There's not a lot of causes of concern about the Rangers as they are a well-oiled machine, all things considered. Vincent Trocheck's significant contributions, and they must focus on capitalizing on quick striking opportunities through stretch passes, as I do think that the Florida Panthers will be the toughest opponent that they face. Make no mistake about it, the Capitals, that wasn't so tough on them. The Hurricanes, on paper, I thought would be able to take them down handily. Not the case. But the Florida Panthers are pretty good, and I think will be a good test for the Rangers. So what do the Florida Panthers have to do here? They have to aim to secure a consecutive appearance in the final cup. That's something that is just a known about them. Impressive playoff run fueled by pending unrestricted free agents, Gustav Forsling's effective support for Aaron Ekblad, Carter Verhaeghe's emergence as an X factor, and strategy revolves around creating high danger scoring chances. It is not going to be easy to get the puck past Shesterkin. It's just not going to be an easy thing. So that is one of the things that the Florida Panthers are going to have to do. So let's take a look out west, and the Dallas Stars. You take a look at the Dallas Stars and what they've had to overcome facing the Golden Knights and the Avalanche. I think, if you were asking me, earlier, let's say a few months ago, so it's Dallas and they're going to be playing the Golden Knights and the Avalanche. Who do you think is going to win those games? I would have said the Golden Knights or the Avalanche. I just did not see Dallas being this good. But they are, and that is why they are in the position that they're in. So Dallas Stars, they're striving to advance in the playoffs. Rope Hintz return to the lineup. Performance of Thomas Harley as an unexpected X factor. So that is what they're going to have to do, is just find a way to really take it to the Edmonton Oilers, which is not going to be an easy out either. If there's one team, I said who I think is going to win it. If there's one team I'm kind of pulling for, and I have no allegiance to this team other than what I'm going to say next here, is the Edmonton Oilers. And you might say, Dan, why the Edmonton Oilers? Because it is a Canadian hockey team, and they haven't had a lot of great things happen in Canada for a while, as far as the NHL is concerned, as far as playoff success, those kind of things. And if there's one thing I know for sure, is that the Canadians, they love themselves some hockey. So I think best case scenario for a Canadian would be for the Maple Leafs, of course, but the Edmonton Oilers are north of the United States and are Canadian, and I think that would be just a good thing for Canadians to rally around. I also do like Connor McDavid, quite a player. I think I'm not saying anything too crazy there. So the Edmonton Oilers navigating a critical juncture in the playoffs. Again, this is a team that oftentimes lets their fans down either before the playoffs or in the playoffs. Oftentimes they are a team that is sketched out to be a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, it's not something that happens. Relying on contributions from bottom six players, Connor McDavid's performance as a decisive factor. He can be an absolute game changer and someone that can sneak it past Ottinger. Protecting goaltender Stuart Skinner is paramount, and seeking to maintain strong defensive performances. And it's interesting that the Oilers were finding a way to fix. I know there's still been some questions about the Oilers net minding, but it seems that if they're at this point, they must have addressed it. I still think big picture, it's something they need to take care of after this season. So if they can pull a rabbit out of their hat and win a Stanley Cup, good. But if not, it's something that they need long-term solutions. There's a lot of teams like that. And oftentimes when I talk about Darcy Kemper, I would say the Oilers, I would say the Canucks, and I would say the Maple Leafs all need help in net. All teams are facing significant challenges as they pursue success in the playoffs, and these factors will be undoubtedly play a crucial role in determining the outcomes, of course. But those are the games ahead. And already just looking at the lineups, I like the matchups and who's it's going to be. I want to see the Rangers. I want to see the Panthers square off. I want to see Dallas, and I want to see Edmonton. It is getting to be an exciting time of year as a hockey fan. And if you can find a way to watch it, and if you like NHL hockey other than the Capitals, I think it is some must-see TV. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.